Am I looking down or looking up? I got to look at my camera.
You're looking up. You're looking good, and the broadcast is on. So we'll just wait another few moments. People who got here a little bit early, and then we're going to actually kick off. Okay, it is now officially 12:30 in the morning in central Japan. Actually, all over Japan. So hello, everyone. Thanks for coming in and having a look or watching later after the broadcast. My name's Nate Gildart, originally from Canada, and I teach history and individuals and societies at an international baccalaureate school in Japan. So I come from a school that's kind of small with 500, but with kids from about 50 different countries around the world, of course, including Japan. So this session is on digital storytelling. We're going to start with some Google stuff, and then we're going to show you some other tools outside of Google, but a lot of them obviously are compatible with Google. But before we do that, first I'm going to have my friend Chris Cochran, a professional filmmaker from Canada as well, introduce himself, and then we're going to come back to him a little bit later for some advice from the professional filmmaker on what you can do as a student or a teacher to improve your storytelling. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Pleasure. Thanks, Nate, for the invite. I really enjoy it, and back to you.
Okay. Yeah. Chris is off to Europe tonight, by the way, for a film project. So I'm going to just share my screen here. Bear with me. And whoa, sorry, didn't mean to cancel that. You're going to notice I have a whole pile of apps opened up. So this is going to slow me down slightly. So I'm going to kind of go in and out from the slides deck. So it's not going to be so smooth, but you'll get some good ideas, I hope, from today. So first off, we're going to look at some 360 imagery. We're going to look at timelines. We're going to look at some video, briefly talk about comics, and we're going to look at some iPad and iPhone apps that you can use. If we can get that done in 15 minutes, just as introductions, great. If not, don't worry about it, because you can come back to the slide deck, which I'll improve shortly. And in fact, try to follow along as I go through this. We're going to look at a bunch of different apps. Just got a note from my wife here. So anyway, we're going to start right here. We're going to look at Google Tour Builder. Now, Google Tour Builder is embedded in Google Earth. And as you know, Google tends to make adjustments and adaptations. So expect some changes coming to Google Earth in the future, as well as My Maps and other things as well. But this is something that I made after you sign in. It's going to give you the option to create a new tour. It's pretty intuitive, where you can add a video or an image here. You give it a title, and then what you can do is type your narrative right there. But what's really cool is when you open it up in Earth, and it will take a moment to load. When you open it up in Earth, what it basically does is take you from one place to the next place to the next place, and it tells the story as it applies to the time, place, and space on Earth. So you notice this one I've looked at is the Black Death. So now it takes a moment to load, and then boom, you've got my introduction slide right there. I'm going to kind of close that. Yeah. Okay, we'll go back that way. And so here I've got 17 different places that tell us what happened, like how the Black Death kind of originated and spread. We're not going to look at all of them, of course, for the sake of time. But so what happens is your students could read this. They could be working with a worksheet if they want. Depends on how you want to apply it as a teacher. Again, they can make their own. That's the key idea here. And what happens basically, each stop along the journey takes you to some place in the world. And, if you put up your old photographs here, this is an example of how people may have actually traveled along the Silk Road. If you want, though, you can look at, the three-dimensional view. You can take Pegman, which he's called, and plop them down and have the students look at, these places as they are today, which is really neat. So they can think, hey, wait a minute, this stuff happened like 600-700 years ago, but this is a real place. And then you can look at it through Street View. Now I'm going to close that one up and not kind of go on, because you get the idea. But my point is the students can actually make these as well. And it's not too difficult. And you don't have to have 17 different places. So we'll close that up. The Story of Christmas, that was kind of a fun one. Okay, so now we're going to look at another geo tool from Google called My Maps, and you may or may not have heard My Maps. This is also very easy to make. You're not looking at this construction view of it right now, but I wanted to show you an example of not really storytelling, but how students can use My Maps to learn about, for example, the different tectonic plates were formed, because it does have a drawing polygon feature. Sorry. Now here is an example of the stories they can learn from. So these are, for example, contemporary civil wars. So when you click, you get the location. And of course, if you want, I'm going to move that out of the way here. You can zoom out, and the students can either create their own map, or if you're the teacher, you've created the story. You can have students work with whatever way they want. I did this with a jigsaw. And this is my older version of it, actually. I have other conflicts that are mapped out now, because this looks too Africa, Europe. Want to make sure that people realize conflicts are global. Here's another one too. It's Japan and world travel. So I had students talk about what they did over summer school, or sorry, summer break. And that's not allowing me to zoom. Okay, there we go. And that's why, because we didn't. So what they could do, what these kids did, like one student went to New Caledonia, for example, when they got back. And so she was talking about New Caledonia. Now, if we developed this, she would have had more photos and images and things like that. Sorry, we're not going to go to Earth. But you get the idea. Like, hey, how was your summer? Where did you travel? I mean, this basically was a group story of our journeys this summer, which is kind of neat. So we'll close that up. And we're 6 minutes in here, so I'm going to kind of rush along a little bit before we get to Chris. Now, if you were to go into, you see up here, poly.google.com. Okay. Now, this is actually from Google Tour Creators. So if you simply search for a Google Tour Creator, you're going to get Tour Creator VR right here, and you just click Get Started. And it's going to allow you to create your own 360-degree tour. Now, they do have images that you could look at other people's tours if you wanted to, or you could look at the different templates, right? And there's some cool little things like the human body, for example, right? I'm going to show you one that I constructed, because it is not very difficult. So, sorry, let me go back here. So basically what you have to do is choose and or upload your own 360-degree Street View image. Now, this one I had downloaded from somebody that had been to Aleppo before the time of ISIS. So you notice here the name is The ISIS War on Culture. So the story I'm trying to tell is how ISIS has tried to destroy culture within Syria, the Levant, and Iraq. But you notice here we've got these little hot spots, right? So if I was to scroll down, by the way, you can see throughout the whole tour, you're going to get this brief little description. And if you click on a hotspot, then you're going to get an image of what it looked like after ISIS came in and did some damage, right? So what I'm trying to do is get images of before and after. So you click on here and it takes you to something else. And then, of course, you click out. Now, if you want, you can do the screen view. And if you want to share it, cool thing is now you can share it on Expeditions. So you can use this with Google Cardboard now. So you as a teacher or your students can make their own 360-degree image-based tours, and then put their tours, watch their tours, through their own phones. You'll notice here too, I've got two scenes in this story, if you will. And so students can scroll around and look for the hot spots. If it was on Expeditions, I'd be forcing them where to go. Okay, so then you can see the different views. All right, so that's Poly. Now, let me just make sure I go back and I haven't forgotten anything that I wanted to talk about with Google. No, we've looked at My Maps. We have some examples here. So now I'm going to turn it over to Chris. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'll go back and share my screen shortly. And so now I see Chris's pretty little face there. Chris, what you, as a professional storyteller, what advice do you have for teachers and students?
Well, the one thing I've noticed when I see generally videos done by students, teachers, and the like is there's way too much content, and two, there's no super focus. The key to a great video is to laser beam the focus. And people always ask me, how do you do that? How do you make it so it's a laser beam focus? It's really very simple. One trick, I guess the best word that I like to use, is to personalize it. By that I mean, if you're telling a story, say, of the school basketball team, don't say this is the school basketball team, we've won 5 million games and our coach is the greatest and here's the interview. No. Pick it and show it through the eyes of one of the participants. So pick a participant who is typical and tell their story, which is in fact the story of whatever, in this case, a school team. So this is Mary, this is Joe, this is whoever. Okay, they've been on the team 15 years and get their comments and get the coach's comments and things like that. If you personalize it, it becomes much more laser focused and actually keeps you on track, and the viewer will relate directly to what you're doing. I use it all the time. My stuff on greatbigstory.com is generally that. I do it through a personalization. I'll find an individual. So if I were doing a story, Nate, say about your school,
okay,
I would actually do your story, and in there would be the story of the school. So that's the one tip I'd say is laser focus and do it by personalizing or doing it through the eyes of somebody who's participating.
Right, not necessarily your own eyes, not just a whole bunch of facts and statements.
Yeah, because what you see is a lot of cutaways and pictures of all kinds of great things. And I saw one recently where they're talking about some kind of medical school, and they showed me pictures of empty classrooms. Well, I'd rather hear from the students, the participant.
I'm going through this story, does it?
So that's really the thing is to personalize it, to laser focus through the eyes of a participant in whatever it is you're trying to tell a story of.
Great stuff. Thanks for that. That's right there, through the eyes of the professional storyteller, right? Who's off to Europe in a few short hours. So thanks for making the time.
No problem. My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again, everybody. If you have any questions, put them in the YouTube chat, and then I'll have a look at them and try to answer them in some way. I can't access that right now without actually I can, but
if they have questions for me, Nate, you can pass
or
them
with
on.
you, yeah.
Back, yeah.
Actually, I'm sharing my screen now, and I'm just going to pop over and have a look. I just got to turn my volume off. Let's see. Love the tour, Bill. A fantastic tool. Thanks for the advice. Great. Thank you both, Ramon and Victoria. Appreciate that. So anyway, I'm going to go back so you don't get blinded by all these different screens here. And hopefully you can still hear me there. Are we good?
Yeah, fabulous.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, so here's... Pardon?
No, go, please.
Here's another 361 that I absolutely love. It's called ThingLink. Slightly small learning curve. It's not too bad, but you can embed so much stuff. So this is a place in Eastern Canada I went to. I took some 360 photos, but I also researched the history of it, right? And of course, you notice I've got my citations in there. You always want to be academically honest. You can embed like a Google map, right? So there's Fort Beausejour right there. And again, as the students scroll around, you can see there's top of my head in my 360 camera. When you have the different little icons, you can tell like a little more about whatever aspect you want people to learn about. You can click on YouTube videos as well, which is really cool. So this is me walking through Beausejour with my 360-degree camera. You don't have to have all these different icons. It makes the image look a little bit ugly, to be honest with you, but I had a lot to tell. So I've actually got to take that advice from Chris and get that laser focus going on when I do these things. But that's ThingLink. It's really cool. You can become a ThingLink educator if you want to take their teacher program too. So I'm going to close this one up. And here's another one that's I absolutely love. This is cool. It's called Sutori. It's run by a couple of brothers outside of or somewhere in England. It's only like $35 a year. They also have a teacher program, and they're very engaged with their audience. I try to keep in mind that stories don't necessarily have to be a narrative. Here's an example of one of my stories. This is a timeline builder, by the way. Basically, I created a timeline just helping kids figure out how they can take notes and in different ways that help them take notes. Now, to go back and give you a story example, here is one of Sengakuji, the 47 Ronin. You know, they wanted revenge on their beguiled daimyo, their feudal lord. So I've got a little video that I had taken when I was there, but as you scroll down, you can see the story. You can embed images and things like that. In fact, let me get one more example here because I want you to see the different things that you can do. This is one on the Cultural Revolution, life under Mao Zedong. And you'll see that you've got little questions you can ask. There are little quizzes. I'm scrolling down here. You notice that you can embed videos and images and all that stuff. Oh, where's the quiz? Anyway, what you can do, yeah, there's one of the quizzes. So, what was the purpose of the little red book? You choose whatever it is. You as the teacher will get the response. You've got drag and drop as well. So you can take, whoever it was, and put it in the right place. So it's very interactive and engaging. And these things actually have been developed now. So there's more that you can actually do with them. So Sutori is another really cool one, I think. And it's easy to use. My grade 9s, a lot of them have chosen that as their demonstration of learning. I'm pretty sure most people that look at this video will have heard of Flipgrid. And yes, Flipgrid fever is everywhere. But so these are commercials for an election campaign simulation that we did in my class. I'll just give you a quick little example. The students made their video and they uploaded their videos, and basically they modeled them after. So basically they made a campaign commercial and we linked it to a Google form and had people around the world, like 5 or 6 different countries, do an electronic ballot. A friend of Chris of mine, actually, Rushton Hurley, we've got a little thing on. We're telling the story of service organizations and nonprofits around the world that we might know about. So a few of my students, let's take, here's a group of Brazilians that so anyway, they're telling the story of a group for assistance of children with cancer. And this was a really quick project, but if we had more time to do it, we would have had them really engage with telling that story, pulling out the heartstrings. Probably would have had them make a video and upload it instead of just taking a video of themselves talking. But Flipgrid is another great tool. It's absolutely free, part of Microsoft now. I recommend you look into it. Now, we are over time here, but we're going to keep going. If you've got to get off, that's totally fine. But I do want to show you a couple of other things. Whiteboarding apps. Okay, this one obviously has been loading for a while. Oh, there we go. This is EduCreations. There's a free one called Vittle, V-I-T-T-L-E. I'll link it in the slide deck when I get a chance in the next couple of days. But basically, you talk and narrate, and you draw. So you'll notice as I go along, what I'm doing is narrating and highlighting certain points, because this painting by David was commissioned by Napoleon and was actually a piece of propaganda. And his mother didn't even go. But imagine getting your kids to draw their own picture and scene, and then you scan it for them, and then they kind of narrate it on EduCreations, or, I mean, if they're too young. If they're old enough, they can do it themselves. Now, there's another thing, too, that I think falls under storytelling, and this is what we refer to as demonstrations of learning. And so I had a couple of students that they were doing A Midsummer Night's Dream. Their English level was a little bit low, so the teacher of the story, the play, wanted to find out what they really knew about it. So I said, okay, let's grab a document camera and tell me about the characters. So as you can see, they're telling the story of the characters through their eyes and demonstrating just by drawing little pictures. Their faces aren't there, but they're actually demonstrating their learning. So I think that's it's one that actually falls under this topic. And it was done with a document camera. They can do it with their own phones if they have them. Want to jump down? There are a whole pile of other ones that I'd like to show, but we are kind of running out of time, and I've got one more to do here. I do want to highlight a few other things, though. These are apps that you can use with an iPad or an iPhone or an Android. Sock Puppets is a really fun one that students like. And of course, there's green screening, which kids really like. Here was a fun green screen green screen project the kids working on. Oh, this was green screen, but stop motion as well. Where did that come from? Okay, and there's another one called Chatterpix, which is really quite funny. Let's see. I'll give you a show of that one. And these are really easy for the young ones to use. I don't know what he was saying, but he was like 4 years old. So,
I love
I
it.
don't- it's great stuff. The kids are really cute that way. There is one really fun one that, um, well, anyway, I think we're running out of time here, and I have to get ready for my next one. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. But I will try to link some other things to this for everybody within that slides deck. It's been a busy Golden Week. I just got back from Tokyo, so but anyway, just go to those links, explore them. They're all quite intuitive and user friendly. Try them out with your students at school. Try them out yourself too. Create materials for your students to use, just to make things a little bit funner. So that's it. So we're going to stop the live broadcast. Chris, you're still going to be there. So we'll chat with you in just a moment. Thanks for joining, everyone. Appreciate it. Thank you, Chris.